Welcome to this portion of the video of the stream where I'll be going over my latest edit. I'll be sharing this shortly. Please go check out my Instagram. Details will be in the description. We'll go over my process for how I edit a photo. It is around about 3-4 steps. This action set is available on my Discord if you did want to download that. The version that I've got on there is an older one. I do plan on uploading the latest version that you can see here. I'm just refining a few things first to make sure I'm really happy with this one before I then upload it to the Discord. The one that's currently there now is still good. It has most of the steps in here. There's just a few extra things I've done with this one. Give it a go, experiment with things, even compare with what I'm doing here or what I have in the latest version, and then you'll be able to maybe tweak it a bit. But stay tuned, I will be sharing a new version of the action set soon. I'm pretty happy with the one that I've got here. Anyway, the first step that we've got is frequency separation. What I use that for is distraction and blemish removal. In this case, this image, the distractions were more prominent on the leaves. I actually worked on an image similar to this a while back, and I had a similar problem. So the poor trees, they must have been ravaged by various insects and things. Yeah, there was a lot of cleaning up to make the leaves look nice and healthy, very green and lush, and it can affect how you feel about a photo if something isn't quite right about it. Things that draw your eye away from the central subject, in this case, the model here, Annie, worked with a few times before. What I'll do is I'll just turn off all these other layers, and in fact we'll turn that one off as well. This is what the image looked like after my basic edits within Lightroom. You'll see that there are some blemishes here on the leaves, so quite a lot of them, insect holes and bites and things, and yeah, they were just really nagging at that part of me that likes things to look nice and pretty and clean. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of them. That's the first thing they need to do. And I do like to stress, look at the image, try and give it a moment to figure out what you want to do with it first before you then do other stuff like the coloring and such, because you want to start off with a nice clean slate that you can build upon later, like having a nice clean image. You got rid of all the distractions, like all these insect bites and things. What you see here is kind of a minimal version of what I do within my action set. The action set creates a whole bunch of other layers and things with it. I've kept it really simple down to just these three. I've deleted a couple of the others. All we have really is the low frequency layer. I generally don't touch that one. And then we have the polishing layer, which you use a brush tool to paint in colors. See here this white mark, then I'll paint in green to replace that. I have the high frequency layer and an edit layer. It is really just the details part of the image, whereas low frequency is your color information, just that. Think of it like a comic, black and white, no color, and then you can also have a colorist who will add in the color later. And that's what we've done here with frequency separation. This one up here called edit, this layer, that is a duplicate because I liked the high frequency layer with the padlock on it as a backup. That way, if you make a mistake up here, then you can always create a new edit layer, a new duplicate that you can work on. If you make a mistake here with the high frequency layer, and you kind of have to recreate everything again, so best to keep the edit layer in there, work on that. I did make a mistake. I think I used the wrong tool on the edit layer. On the edit layer, you should use the clone stamp tool. I think I used the brush tool instead, and then rather than deleting what I've done here, I just added a mask, and then I masked out the mistake I did. Let's go back and see what I've done. Now, the techniques that I've done here isn't anything new from what I've described in other videos, so do check them out. But it's really just a removing of the details of the hole, because there'll be hard lines around any holes in the leaves. So you want to copy an area from, let's say, this side of the leaf to replace the part that had a hole. Like, see how there's those hard lines? If we were to, let's go here and then here, and let's press and hold Alt and select the eyeball icon there, the visibility. This is really just like there's some color, but essentially it's just details. And what you will have here is you'll have hard lines of where there was a hole, and then for anything like that, that's where you just copy and paste using the clone stamp tool to remove the hole and replace it with something that doesn't have a hole in it, but similar in texture. That is the general gist of that part. Let's zoom back out again. That's what the details high frequency layer looks like. We'll press and hold Alt and the visibility button to bring that back, like so. And then if you wanted to see what it looked like, the low frequency layer with just the color information, it's just like a blurry image really. And what happens when you run the action set is it'll bring up a Gaussian blur, a blur that you can then adjust the amount of blur that you add to the photo. And here you can see there's no hard lines, no hard details in there, which is what you want for a low frequency layer. We'll bring that back. Now that was our step for frequency separation. Next up we have dodge and burn. In this case I did do some dodge and burn. I didn't do that with my last edit. What we'll do is we'll bring that up so you can see what I've done, and there is quite a lot of layers and things. We'll minimize it to make it nice and simple. With dodge and burn there's two parts to it. There is local dodge and burn and global dodge and burn. When you're doing local dodge and burn, you want to have a nice clean image, no harsh shadows. I use the curves method of doing dodge and burn, and when I have my brush set to a white color in the foreground, a fill of 1% and my opacity 100%. I generally use the soft round brush for local dodge and burn. Sometimes when it comes to global dodge and burn, that's where you're doing that contouring and fancy stuff. That's where I would raise the fill from 1% to 4 to 8. It varies depending on what I'm doing. The opacity always stays at 100%. And then sometimes what I do is I'll change the brush from soft round to soft round pressure, opacity and flow. But usually I'm pretty happy with soft round brush. I'll just use that one instead. Now within local dodge and burn, I stick with the two layers. If we go to the properties, you can see what's happening with the curves adjustment layer. With the burn, it's bringing the overall brightness down. With the dodge, it is bringing the overall brightness up. And that's all they're doing. And using the brush tool, when you've selected the mask, all you're doing is you're painting in, revealing the effect of either dodge to make it brighter in certain parts of the image, or using burn where you're making parts darker. When I'm using local dodge and burn, I do most of the work within dodge, and we'll just turn off the global dodge and burn so you can see the difference. So here is before, that is without any local dodge and burn or global dodge and burn applied, and then here is what it looks like with local dodge and burn applied, which is in this case really just dodge. Okay, and that was using the low fill value of 1%. When it comes to global dodge and burn, these are the same as what's with a local dodge and burn. They're the same curves adjustment layers, they're just duplicates, and as what you're doing with them is that's different. You're adding more of the effect versus what you're doing in local dodge and burn. Remember, that was where you're just trying to even out the lighting. You could simplify it down just to two layers, one dodge layer and one burn layer, but you'll find after doing it a lot you'll need more control, and that's why I've got all these separate layers here to adjust the fill and the blending mode on them individually. So if I'm working on like the eyes, you'll see here eyes and teeth, highlights, eyes, and we've got contour, but at the moment version 1 or even my one, it just creates a dodge and burn global group and dodge and burn. That's it. Nothing else. But what I'll do is I think I'll include these two folders, the dodge and the burn, and then put padlocks on those, so those will become your backup that you can then create additional ones. So here we'll add a padlock on that, because that's your backup file. And what I did was don't touch this one. You can create more from this one here. Control J to create a duplicate. And then we had one for the highlights, do one for the eyes and the teeth. Like here you can see the blending mode, luminosity, and then the fill at 52%. It all varies. Mentally for me, it just makes sense for you to go with a blending mode of luminosity, but there's no hard and fast rule with that. You could always just go with whatever gets the effect that you're after. Sometimes I've thought, like within coloring, saturation, hue, or one of the other blending modes will look great, and then for whatever reason it just looks good with luminosity, and I think, well, this shouldn't work, but oh well, that's good. Yeah, but here, as I was mentioning earlier, where you'll want to affect the amount of fill and the blending mode separately for different things. That's where you would want to have these separately. That's the default one. It's not doing anything. I tend to start with eyes first, and you'll see the eyebrows are a little bit darker, the eyelashes there too, so those two areas, which is really eyelashes, eyebrows. And then we've got one for contour, just around the edges of her face. One thing that I do is I like to make sure with the direction of the light, which way is the light coming from. You don't want to add shadows that goes against that, because then your image will start looking really weird. So we'll add the contour back, and then we've got one for the leaves. So not something that I was expecting to be doing with this edit was to dodge and burn leaves. But here we go. Yeah, just to make them darker, not so bright, bring back some things. Certain areas I didn't add the burn to, like this lighter leaf. I've kept that kind of bright and then added more here and there. Moving on to our dodge, there is eyes, and that's to make the eyes a little bit brighter, pop a little. You have to be very careful. The eyes can look very ghostly though if you go too crazy with the dodge on them. Keep practicing and seeing what looks right. I do recommend go away, come back, and then see if you still feel the same way about it, or if you realize, oh, okay, no, I went too crazy. I need to bring down the fill on the eyes. Yeah, so she doesn't look like the undead. Okay, and then highlights is just across the nose. That is global and a local dodge and burn done, and that is within the action set you see here. So 1, 2. The next one is coloring. I have an action which really just creates 2 folders, one which is for the subject, one which is for the background. I describe how I do this within my latest YouTube video, because what I do is I try and keep the skin tones and the model looking as natural as possible, and then you can go crazy on the colors for the background. And you'll find on Instagram a lot of people do that. They'll have like purple leaves, red leaves, and all sorts of colors, but the skin tones of the model will look more natural. And this is the way that I do it. I try and keep this like a structured approach of it. Start off with frequency separation for distractions and blemish removal, then do dodge and burn for light and shadows, and then after that do the color, and then my final edits. In terms of the coloring part, I guess the only thing that's really different from what I have talked about previously is this part here, Rosy Cheeks. So Rosy Cheeks is just a blank empty layer. I've added it on the subject group, put in that one, and it's just a brush. So you press the B for the brush, and then I sampled a color from here. I think her lips are warmer or redder than her cheeks were, and then I just painted in that reddy look to her cheeks. Now if we turn it off, you'll see what it looked like before. So not a huge difference. That's because I have blending mode changed to hue, and then we've got the fill at 35%. So just to make your cheeks a little redder, a little warmer, to go in I guess with the Christmas theme. Otherwise, yeah, I usually add a color balance with the subject group here to modify the colors a little for my Panasonic camera. If I go to the properties, you'll see what I've done here for midtones and shadows. That's all I really do with it. Works for almost every photo when it comes to the subject for my edits. Of course, if you're using a Sony or Canon or Nikon or whatever brand, then you might not need to do that at all, but it's just sort of works for mine. Levels, I add more contrast, especially around the hair. These will only affect the background. And what I did here was using the color wheel. So if I bring that up here, this is a plugin extension that you can add within Photoshop. I'll wait for it to load, and you can select from here either one of these for the color wheel, and this one, in this case, complementary. What you can do is you can sample, use the eyedropper tool, select the background, eyedropper, and then maybe this red was a very prominent, lots of red, and the opposite color of red is green. And then you got it selected here within the foreground color of the palette, and then if you select this button, get selected color, then what I'll do is I'll find some opposite colors for you that you can try and tweak. Let's see if we just turn background off. So a little bit different. I wanted to make them more like these. There's no sort of auto button that I know of that can make these into these colors. You can actually select this green, and then you can actually get it to go back into the palette. So you can go there. Now you see here on the left hand side that green has been moved here. Most of what I did down the bottom part here is from other people like Pixel Perfect on YouTube. Awesome guy, I love the way he teaches. And the method of frequency separation that I use is called the PHP method. Of course, within my action set, it's a modified version of his one that he provides, his action set, and I've actually combined a couple of things into my single one here. And the dodge and burn, this method of dodge and burn I learned from him as well. I just like how using the curves method, you're not actually doing anything destructive to the image. It's all within curves, and you can delete the curves if you make a mistake, or you can reset the curves. So it's very clean this way. Even here, these things you can it's not affecting the image, it's not permanent. Okay, we want those greens to be more like these, so that's where you can use whatever adjustment layer tool you like, whether it's selective color balance, and vibrance. I like to experiment with them all, try them out. There's some that I favor more than others, so you might be a big fan of the curves adjustment layer for changing colors and the highlights and the shadows and everything. I haven't used that one as much, but I like to just keep rotating through them all. I tend to like the color balance tool a lot though. I do like this visual aspect to it. Cyan, red, magenta, green, so you can see what's happening. Whereas in curves adjustment and down dodge and burn, if we were to go to like red, you've got no visual way of saying what's the opposite of red. If you're doing more red here, what's this? I don't remember. Of course, once you've done this enough, then you'll know. But within Camera Raw and Lightroom, they've actually added in those visual things for you. And one other thing I like within Camera Raw is if I move this down here, I can just double click the line and then I'll reset it. Doesn't do that here. Why can't they just do that nice little simple thing and these other things as well? Let's just turn each one of these off. So we've got the selective color, got the color balance, and then we've got the vibrance. I should know, I tend to forget what I've done after I've finished doing it. So it's kind of like a trip down memory lane as well for me, to go through the edit again, say, what did I actually do? Okay, yellows and greens, that tends to be the colors for leaves and trees. It can sometimes be in some weird colors, but usually within those. I don't think I did anything else in the others. No, okay, cool. All right, with that done, so the coloring is all good, and then I like to do final wrap up within Camera Raw. What I used to do was to save it from this point, go back into Lightroom, and then do some final adjustments there. But all I do within Lightroom now is to export the image and do everything after the initial basic adjustments within Lightroom. Everything else is done within Photoshop here. The final action, this one here, what it'll do is it'll create a stamp visible layer of everything that's visible below it. So the coloring, the dodge and burn, frequency separation, the whole lot. And then it'll convert that stamp visible layer into a smart object. And finally, it'll apply a Camera Raw filter on top of that. So if we extend this out, and you can see smart filters. We've actually added a smart sharpen on there as well, and then that just adds a little bit of sharpen to the overall image. I don't always do that, sometimes I forget to do it, not necessary, but I did it in this case. And then let's bring up the Camera Raw filter. Here you can see the additional adjustments that I've done, pretty straightforward if you can see all of that. So here I have applied some blue to the highlights, and love that they've added that in there. It just makes things a better, more control with the highlights, midtones and shadows. Now I think I've added in some green there as well, and we've got some vignetting also. I think I noticed that there was some purple fringing along this side of her scarf. It was just there though, it was nowhere else. I had to go into, I think, optics, and that's where I had to bring up the purple amount, and then that just got rid of the fringing here along this side. Now if I bring it down, you might be able to see it. Yeah, see that purple fringing? That was bothering me. And I thought, yeah, I've really got to get rid of that. You probably could do it right at the very start, but then as you go through the edit, modify the colors and dodge and burn and everything, then it might just come back anyway. But yeah, it was really noticeable here at this stage where I wanted to just sort it out. I think that's everything. Saved the file, went back into Lightroom, exported it from there. So that is the edit. Now, one thing I do want to mention, let's say if I notice something and I needed to fix it, Now, what you could do is you could either create a layer on top of this and then use the Smart Healing brush tool and then fix it. So that's the quick and easy way to do it. Or alternatively, if it's more complex, delete that, hide the smart object, and then make the changes you need to do. So let's say we have to go back into frequency separation, remove a blemish that we didn't spot before, and then we go, okay, all right, cool, it's sorted. Now, thing is, you actually have to create it again, but the very, very easy way of doing it is just to run final adjustments again. That'll create the stamp visible layer and the smart object for you, like so. It'll also bring up camera raw, but we'll click cancel this time. So that has applied everything that was below it that we had before. Now, rather than deleting this one straight away and having to start over with all the camera raw adjustments and everything like you did before, what you can do is you can just click on this smart filters, drag it down to the new one that we created, like so, and then we can click delete, and that'll delete the old one. This will be the new stamp visible layer smart object with all the changes you made below it, and you've also maintained the camera raw filter that you did previously. So all those steps you had, all the stuff, you don't have to redo them all over again. All of those, the color grading, the effects, and all that, you don't have to do that again. You can just drag it from the old one onto the new one. Pretty cool, right? Thank you guys for tuning in my latest edit, which will be shared to my Instagram. It'll probably be live by the time you watch this on VOD or YouTube. But yeah, that's that edit for you. If I turn those other layers off, you can see all these things here, which you could remove using the healing brush tool. But I just like what you can do with frequency separation. If we zoom in, get rid of all these blemishes on the leaves. Model looks great. The leaves though, oh, the poor trees.